And welcome back to yet another episode of Los Angeles Online Film Critics Society Weekly Critics Picks. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And we are live and we are back. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic and normally creator and host of Behind the Lens. But today, I am hosting LAOFCS Weekly Critics Picks. And I am thrilled to have my two partners in crime here with me, my fellow LAOFCS members and critics, Alexander Robinson and Carla Renata.
Hello.
Hi.
Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
All right, well, I'm Alexander Robinson. I was here last week, but in case you want to find me, I'm on YouTube, The Real Mr. Robinson, Twitter, Real Mr. Robinson, Instagram, The Real Mr. Robinson, and the Stardust app, Real Mr. Robinson.
I love that, Mr. Robinson, the real Mr. Robinson. I am Carla Renata, the Curvy film critic. You can find me here at the AfterBuzz Studios at Black Hollywood Live, their sister station, with my show, The Curvy Critic, with Carla Renata, every Sunday at 5 p.m. I also host the after show for General Hospital over at AfterBuzz TV, and I also do the after show for American Princess, a brand new show. Check us out on Sundays. All of that happens on Sundays.
Okay, wait a minute. Carla just said the two magic words here, General Hospital.
You love General Hospital? Oh, girl, General Hospital is my jam now.
I've been watching it since the very first airing.
Stop it.
Over 56 years ago. Yes, indeed.
All right, girl, we got to talk.
So we got to talk about about this. And again, I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, radio show host of Behind the Lens, which is on adrenalineradio.com. Also, you can find my movie reviews and interviews in print and online in the U.S. and abroad 24/7, and of course at behindthelensonline.net. Okay, now let's jump into the film picks for this week.
Alrighty.
This is a big release weekend, guys.
It really is.
Huge.
Yeah, Alexander, we were talking before the show, and you didn't know. We were all befuddled about how many films are actually opening today.
Yeah, I thought it was just Phoneix, Pets, and last night. But,
oh, no.
Or late.
No. Mm-mm. But, so let's jump right in so that we can say a little something about all of these little gems. Well, okay, one may not be a gem, but we'll get to that. But let's start with, it is, in a word, bellissimo. Ron Howard's documentary, Pavarotti. Have you guys seen it?
I have not.
Have you?
I have seen it, and I actually spoke to Mr. Howard. So yes, it was, as someone who comes from a singing background and was trained in opera, I was all over this. I felt like Pavarotti was a love letter to Luciano Pavarotti. It showed his vulnerability. It showed his penchant for women and for food, which we're not surprised by that. He's Italian. But it also gave us a bird's eye view to what he was like in concert. I felt like I was watching a concert in real time, even though it was a documentary, and that speaks to the genius of Ron Howard and his filmmaking.
Well, one of the great things about it is the detail and the depth with which Ron tells this story. He tells it with a very objective eye, because as we see, the film is structured like a 3-act opera, which is wonderful to begin with. But he builds us up and he gives us background and history, and then we find out that everything is not exactly what it seems to be. But he never colors anything. He's never jaded in his presentation. And there's a great care in the telling of this story. And I think having so many family members, ex-wives, daughters, they're all bonding together, talking about this man.
Yeah, it was fascinating that he was able to get both of the ex-wives and the mistress, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was interesting that that they freely discussed him, which goes to brings to point the fact that he was very beloved within his family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not only did we love him across the globe as a tremendously gifted artist, but he was loved tremendously by his family.
Yeah.
I also like the through line that Ron Howard used of using the song Nessa Dorma throughout as a plot point for each chapter of his life throughout the documentary. And do you remember this? So I remember a while ago when the Grammys happened, Luciano Pavarotti was ailing. I think he might have been sick at the time, and Aretha Franklin stepped in for him and sang that song. I was like, now I know she the queen of soul, but I didn't know she was an opera diva too.
Queen of the opera.
Yeah.
And in addition to that particular song, something that Ron also does with the structuring is picking the different arias that Pavarotti is most known for, and instead of running them chronologically, he places them with the moment
what's happening in the story
in his life. How does that impact this particular point in his life? Just absolutely amazing. And of course, I've got to give a shout out to Chris Jenkins, the sound recording mixer, and the fact that Ron and Chris did this Dolby Atmos. You will only find Pavarotti in theaters with Dolby Atmos because they wanted top of the line sound. And the beauty of Atmos is it's created bouncing sound off of 64 different fields. So that because of all the archival footage and the things that we have, home movies, things are in mono, things are in very old, 8mm, and the sound quality is not the best. But rather than totally enhance it and lose the flavor of the time and the place and the moment when things were happening, with Dolby, it allows them to really bounce a single sound, such as a mono sound, and it will sound rich, as you know from seeing the film.
It was really beautiful. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was so close up, some of the footage up in Pavarotti's face, that you literally could see how he was using his mouth to color and project the sounds. So as a singer, we're often told to put your tongue up against the back row of your teeth and scoop it in a little bit, and you can totally see him doing that. But he's so gifted that he didn't have to scoop his tongue. He just threw his tongue up against the back of his teeth, and you heard those dulcet, beautiful sounds. He was called the king of the high C's for a reason.
Yes,
because he could hit a high C with so much depth and oomph and control. The control of his voice was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So that is definitely see it. You will love it.
Yeah, Imagine Films and CBS Films are producing that.
And it's a must see. Another film opening today, The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we seen it?
I saw this at Sundance.
Ooh,
I know. Fancy me.
She went to Sundance.
I did. I saw it at Sundance, and I spoke to Tashina about it this week, too. Did you see it, Alexander?
I did not, unfortunately.
Okay. So let me enlighten you, my brother.
Enlighten him.
My brother and sister. So The Last Black Man in San Francisco starts out making you think it's going to be about one thing, and then it ends up being about something else.
Yeah.
So it actually ends up being about two things. It ends up being about family and the lineage of family and how important that is within the generations, and it also addresses the subject of gentrification.
Yeah, in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, to be specific.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty much what it's about. And it's written and starred by Jimmy Fails, who plays Jimmy in the movie.
And John Talbot directs.
John Talbot directs, but the person that you want to see this film for is Jonathan Majors.
Oh, yes.
Jonathan Majors is the reason you want to see this movie.
Well, the big reason I want to see the movie again, having already seen it, is because of Adam Newport-Barrett's cinematography. Because the cinematography, it's rich, it's lush, the color is spectacular, and it really creates a surreal kind of exterior while inside this old Victorian home. I want to move into this home.
That home was beautiful. We had a home. My family had a home like that in St. Louis.
Now, did they really own that home?
Well, you have to go see the movie to find out, because, just saying. The other thing I'm glad that you brought up the cinematography and everything. It was really beautiful, and it was almost like a secondary character within the film, because the way the lens was used actually helps to aid in telling the story with that particular film. The other thing that I wanted to address as far as that film was concerned was the fact that Jimmy was a very complex character.
Very much so.
Extremely complex. But I also wanted to address the fact that Joe Talbot he is, not for nothing, but this is a white dude directing a movie about a black story. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw this at Sundance, I felt some kind of way about that. But then I found out that Jimmy and Joe grew up together.
Yeah.
So he not only tells the story, but he's telling the story of his friend, not just of a black man.
Right. And I think the whole issue of family and gentrification and what happens with this family, it is a very universal story.
It really is.
When you look around, I mean, I grew up in suburban.
It's very timely.
I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, and I could look anywhere and see this same story unfolding.
It happens. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and it happened there too. I mean, even with the house that I spoke of just a few seconds ago that my family owned in St. Louis, it happened in that area too.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the area where our family home was, it was a historical area, so it became a historical landmark.
Right. Well, let us move along here, and I'm gonna. Carla and Alexander haven't seen this one. No, but very few people have. It's open today. It's called Wishman. I have to give a shout out to this film. It is the story of Frank Shankwitz. He's the founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and seeing how the foundation came to be, his life that led him to this. It's a narrative feature. The cast is to die for. You've got Andrew Steele. Thank you, Australia. This is Andrew's first North American film. It will not be his last. We have something besides Brent Foster and the Hemsworth now from Australia that we love. But it also, Faye Masterson, Kirby Bliss Stanton, Frank Willie, Carrie Scott, Bruce Davison, Dale Dickey, and a brilliant cameo segment, a tribute to Chips, because Frank Shankwitz was a CHP officer in Prescott, Arizona.
That's hilarious.
With Robert Pine and Larry Wilcox.
Wow.
It is a beautiful, beautiful film. Bring tissues, but see it.
How about I actually know where Prescott, Arizona is?
I know where it is too.
That's hilarious. I just had to say that. You said Prescott, Arizona. I was like,
Yep. Well, Goose is falling. Goose is not cooperating here. Goose is hoping for it to be Tuesday when Captain Marvel comes out on DVD Blu-ray. But let's jump into the middle of the pack here with Dark Phoenix. Alexander.
This one I did see. And
I saw it too.
Sad days, sad days. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Ryan!
Where do I begin with this? I mean, first of all, the press screening was probably the most interesting part about seeing the movie altogether. Because there were technical difficulties with the actual theater.
I was at that screening.
You were?
Yes. Oh, that was not cute.
Yeah, they, like, right before the film's finale, or during the middle
10
of
minutes
it,
before the end, really.
Yeah, the house lights went up, the movie stopped, and we had to wait about 30 minutes before they set it back up, and everyone who was in the overflow theater just went into the main theater because they'd finished it, and we just sat there for the last 10 minutes, and it was not worth it at all. Guys, how
you really feel about that, Alexander? I don't quite think I grasped the feeling from that.
Well, all I can say is this was a sign from the movie gods, because look, I paid I couldn't make it to the press screening. I paid $16.25 to see this at 10:55 last night.
Oh.
I want my $16.25 back.
Yeah, when I say, like, guys, it's not towards AMC, because sometimes these things are out of their control. We all know this kind of stuff happens. When I say guys, I mean more like the people who made this movie. Like, this was Simon Kinberg's second attempt to do the Dark Phoenix storyline after he wrote X-Men Last Stand, and he still screwed it up. You cannot do Dark Phoenix this early in this second series, because this is the 7th X-Men movie overall. If it had the same cast, continuing storyline, okay, makes sense. But this is the 4th movie in this prequel reboot series. The second one with Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, who we barely knew in Apocalypse. So you can't rush this storyline. It's just a mess overall. Jessica Chastain is like, she is on another level of bad, but I don't blame her for this. Like, because her character didn't even have a name, and she just kind of
she
pops
did.
in. She did?
She did have a name. It was Vuk.
Vuk. Okay.
V-U-K.
VUK.
Okay, that escaped me then.
They never called, and I understand why it escaped you, because they never really called her by her name. They
Oh.
mentioned Vuk one time right before you saw her, and that was kind of it. So it's understandable that you
wow.
thought she didn't have a name, but she did.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that.
No
clearing
problem.
that for me,
That is
Carla.
why I'm here, honey.
That's it. But yeah, and of course this comes on the heel. This winds up a franchise, wraps it up. It doesn't compare with Avengers Endgame. That's how you wrap up
Well, that
franchise. This is not how you do it. And then on the heels of Captain Marvel, to see
yeah,
this.
Jean Grey done so wrong.
Yeah.
I will say this, I know people might not agree with me, but Captain Marvel, not just the character, but the movie had more personality than this did. Because both movies set in the 90s, Captain Marvel embraces the 90s. You feel like you're in the 90s in that movie. Dark Phoenix, outside the fact that James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender have not aged in 30 years, you never feel like it's the 90s at all. So this just had no sense of style whatsoever. And I've never been so sad about a movie this bad in a while. I don't even have any anger towards it. I'm just depressed almost.
Okay, so let me just give a little rebuttal to some of what you said. I love the fact that there were some strong female characters in the film. We had Jessica Chastain as Vuk, we had Alexandra Shipp as a young Storm, and we had Sophie Turner playing Jean. This is the thing. They were kicking butt and taking names. The story was a little disjointed in how, because when it starts off, you think it's going to go a certain way. And again, it goes in a direction that you're not anticipating. But what I did appreciate about the film is that it brings, there was somewhere along the line, somebody said something about people fearing what they don't understand. And that's oftentimes, as a person of color in this country, that's something that oftentimes is associated with people that are different, whether you're a person of color, whether you're disabled, whatever your situation may be. If you are not white in America and you're deemed as different, then that is something that people fear and they don't understand it, and they treat you adversely as a result of it, i.e. our president and how he's treating immigrants, right?
Right.
So with the mutants in the film, I could see that very clearly in this film. I had not seen a single XMen film before this. So
Really?
Not a one. So I was all about the Avengers. So so for this to be my introduction to it, I could see its weaknesses, I could see its strengths. I love the dialogue. I love at one point there was dialogue that said something, why are the women always saving the men? That they should really be called X-women instead of X-men. I love that. I thought that was funny. I loved the battle scenes and stuff, especially the ones in the subway leading to them trying to get Jean. But what I really was like, was the fact that when Jean became, I want to say extraterrestrial for lack of a better word, it was very reminiscent of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, when her Phoenix powers really
when
took.
the sonar flares or whatever it was that she took on
infused her body.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was very reminiscent. That felt very Captain Marvel-ish to me. And in that respect, it kind of took me out of it. Not to mention the fact that, like Alexander said, we were at a screening where the emergency lights went on. They the movie was shut down. And it kind of took you out of the enjoyment of that world. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I still want my 1625 back. Moving on to something much lighter and much more fun. How about The Secret Life of Pets 2? Yes, thank you, Rob. Look.
I saw the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Look,
but anything with talking dogs, I'm kind of all over it.
Anything you got Harrison Ford voicing a herding Australian sheepdog.
What is it with you and Australians? You are loving yourself some Australians.
Today's like Australia Day, okay? Today's Australia Day. But Rooster is my favorite new character, and I am in love with Captain Snowball's performance in this film. Kevin Hart knocks it out of the park, but as Alexander pointed out, somebody else surprised both you and me and did not annoy us.
Yes, and that would be Tiffany Haddish, because I like Tiffany Haddish in her other comedic stuff, but sometimes her movie roles are hit or miss. And I was kind of expecting her to be annoying in this movie. She wasn't. I found her, maybe it's because of the design of the character she voices, Daisy, but like it fit the character design.
Really did.
She was funny. She was more restrained than I felt Kevin Hart was, who honestly I didn't like in the first Secret Life of Pets, and I didn't like in this one. Harrison Ford was the best part of the movies you've mentioned. I think that's the first time he's ever done an animated movie, unless you want to count the Star Wars Holiday Special.
No, we don't count that.
No, we don't. But yeah, it fits so perfectly, and everything he says is funny.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, outside of that, though, I just I liked it better than the first one because they weren't doing Toy Story 2 like the first one did Toy Story, but with pets. But at the same time, I just didn't feel anything. Illumination just doesn't really...
It didn't illuminate.
There you go. But, I mean, like, for me, they just don't aim high when it comes to animated movies. I just wish they try to go for the higher fruit more.
Well, one of the great things about Secret Life of Pets 2, it is entertaining, it is fun, it may be forgettable, except for Harrison Ford voicing Rooster, of course.
Yeah.
But it is a family film. We have nothing else opening this week. And, LA Unified School District, they're out of school now.
Yeah, they are.
So
Most schools are around the country.
So you need something for the kids to see. They can see this. No problem. So now, let's go to the LA Online Film Critics Society Critic Pick of the Week. It is Late Night.
Yay! We love late night.
We love a Late Night. Razor sharp, rapier performance by Emma Thompson. I think this is the funniest she's ever been. I love this film.
Yeah, it was a really great film for a variety of reasons. It's directed by Nisha Ganatra, who's Indian. It's co-written by Mindy Kaling, who's also Indian. There's a lot of women associated with the production value of this particular film, so I love that. I love the fact that the late night host is a woman. I love the fact that she is in her 50s and that seems to be a problem in late night television, which is hilarious to me because almost all of the men in real life that do late night television are in their 50s. All of them.
Or just shy of.
Like there might be two, Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers may not be in their 50s. Or James Corden. But the rest of them, come on. So, you know what I mean? But the thing that really struck me with this one is there's a line that she uses as her moniker. All late night talk show hosts have a moniker that they sign in and out with, right? Jimmy Kimmel's has something to do with Matt Damon.
Right.
And this one, Emma Thompson's character, Catherine, says, "Have I earned the privilege of your time?" And it's really interesting to me that is what she has chosen as her moniker to sign out. Why does she have to say that? Because you don't hear any man have a sign off saying, "Have I earned the privilege of your time?"
They don't sign off with a question.
Exactly. So the fact that she does that was very interesting to me, and I had a conversation with the director Nisha Ganatra about it, and I said, "Why that sign off?" And she said, "But don't we all, as women, ask for the privilege of time, always in every lane that we're in?" And I'm like, "Ooh, I like that." But so yeah, I love that. I love that film for a variety of reasons. I hope it does really well.
And your thoughts on it, Alexander?
They are non-existent because I unfortunately did not see the movie.
See, you have to understand, Alexander was a last-minute fill-in this morning, people.
Thanks for the petty noise, Ryan.
He bailed the show out this morning so that we can always maintain, you can have a 2-to-1, we can have a quorum on something here. So Alexander he very graciously volunteered and filled in today. So I think he deserves a cheer for that, Ryan.
Yay! Well, thank you.
Okay.
I did not know this, so thanks for popping in.
Well,
no problem.
One of the great telling things about Late Night that I love, Mitchell Travers' costume design, the way he dressed, Emma Thompson in particular, the shoes, the earrings, long earrings, the structured, razor-sharp, shoulder-padded blazers. But as her character changes in the film, the blouses get looser. They turn into a chiffon. Really nice elements that impact the character and the development of the character.
Agreed.
And I would be remiss I got to mention the guys in the film. Got to mention the guys. You got Hugh Dancy, John Lithgow, who we'll see in anything.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to see Max Casella in this film.
Yeah.
to see Max. It's always nice to see, one of our old TV favorites pop up today on a film.
Yeah.
So that is the LAOFCS Critics Pick of the week. And this was a tough week because of Pavarotti, because of Secret Life of Pets, because of Late Night. There's good stuff. And in addition to the films we've talked about, there's also another little indie gem, Vault, Mafia, True Story, 1975, Rhode Island. It's fun. And every wise guy you've seen in films, you're going to see in this movie. And then Framing John DeLorean. It is a documentary.
Oh, I did see that.
Oh my! You all think Alec Baldwin does an amazing job as Trump, and of course now he said he's going to stop doing Trump on SNL. Wait till you see him in dramatizations as John DeLorean.
This is the thing about that. I kind of feel differently than you on that one. It felt very Trumpish to me. His reenactments as John DeLorean felt very Trumpish to me.
John DeLorean was very Trumpish.
He didn't. I don't agree with that either. So we're gonna agree to disagree.
We'll
on this
agree
one.
to disagree on that. All right. So moving along, our illustrious president had given us a task of talking about films that we like that are female-led films, be it cast in front of the camera or behind the camera. And I dug into my heart for and my old classic catalog. And this one's for you, Ryan. This is for our producer, Ryan. 1939, The Women.
Oh, I love that movie.
Every female under contract at MGM, but for Lassie, is in that film. No joke. It is.
I know.
Directed by George Cukor. You've got everybody. I mean, it's hilarious. It's biting. It's sharp. Jungle Red. Any classic film fan out there knows what Jungle Red is. Mm-hmm. And you, Little Miss, just having done an intro on TCM with Ben Mankiewicz over the weekend.
Thank you.
For High Society.
Yes.
You should know what Jungle Red is.
Yes, I do.
But it is a film that, if you haven't seen it, it came out of one of the most fertile years in the history of Hollywood. 1939, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, The Women. And they're all out of MGM. Okay. Interesting. But it's based on a story by Claire Booth Luce. It was played on the stage forever. It was remade twice. And screenplay was actually F. Scott Fitzgerald was one of the writers of the screenplay for it.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
But I love that film. My other one is First Wives Club.
Oh, I like that one too.
Have you seen that, Alexander?
I have not. You're going to be hearing that a lot from me today.
I'm going to open up my entire 7,000 plus library to you so you can just borrow things and see them. First Wives Club, directed by Hugh Wilson. And Hugh Wilson, we know him best as being the creator of WKRP in Cincinnati for television. Mm-hmm. But, First Wives Club, it holds up to this day. Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, Diane Keaton. All three are still dazzling us.
Yes.
Bette Midler dazzling on Twitter.
Oh, wow. That was a mess.
Oh, really?
Ooh, that was a hot mess.
Both of these films, they stand the test of time. They speak to women, women's issues, women's relationships with each other. Mm-hmm. And some of the cutthroat methods that they will go to succeed and to get what they want.
Okay.
What about you? What?
Okay, so one of my all-time new favorite female-led films is Girls Trip. That came out I think it was last year. That film is so funny. It's hella funny. It's got Tiffany Haddish, Jada Pinkett, Queen Latifah. Oh God, I can't remember the Regina Hall. Yeah, Regina Hall, who just won the New York Film Critics Award, the first time an African-American woman has ever won the Best Actress Award at that particular Critics Circle situation. But I love that movie. It was gut bucket funny. It was gut bucket giggle funny, but I love that movie. I also loved one of my other favorite female films is a film called Fast Color that starred Lorraine Toussaint and Gugu Mbatha-Raw. Mm-hmm. And I like it because we see black women in that film in a way we have never seen them before. They are kind of like superheroes. with very special powers of being able to move things with telekinesis type of power. And I loved it for that reason. It didn't do very well at the box office because it kind of got overshadowed by some other things. But it's a really, really good film. It's directed by a woman of color. It's starring women of color. The premise of the film is centered around women of color. And I love David Strahan because he's in it too. He plays Gugu Mbatha-Raw's dad. And it's just a really wonderful, unexpectedly joyful film. You know, joyful in the way you perceive it when you watch it, not in its content. So.
Now, what about for you, Alexander? Any female-led or directed films that you like?
Yeah, I have a couple, and they're probably going to be the most mainstream picks I could list out.
Nothing wrong with mainstream.
All right. Well, the first one I have is Spy with Melissa McCarthy, Rose Byrne, Jude Law, Jason Statham. And this one was actually, Spy was the very first movie I went to a press screening for ever since I started getting into this, I guess, business. And it was such a surprise for me because this might be the point where I get thrown out of the studio for this, but I did not like Bridesmaids. Like, I just didn't think it was funny. Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy was just kind of like, Sandra Bullock's funny, but the rest of the movie's not so much. Spy surprised me in how much they put effort into, like, making it feel like a real spy film, but played it for laughs. Jason Statham just plays himself like he does in every other movie, but he's hilarious. Melissa McCarthy just nails everything, whether it's the comedy, the action, and they're just so... It's not afraid to be gory. Like, there's some moments in there that just really took me back in terms of they did that for a comedy. And, it was a lot of fun, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I love that film. For more than Jason Statham. You know, what other female films?
Well, the second one I have is Wonder Woman. And, I'll start with the very first thing I said on Twitter as soon as the movie came out. If it takes guys 3 movies to try to get something right and they can't do it, send in a woman and she'll do it in one. And
That's true.
Well,
and I'm more talking about Patty Jenkins. And, like, she absolutely nailed this movie. Gal Gadot is, like, perfect as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. It does borrow so many elements from both Thor and Captain America the First Avenger, but it does them very well. The No Man's Land sequence is expertly done, and, like, this is the first Wonder Woman movie in theaters, and they are pulling this off 100%. And like, it has heart, it has emotion. You feel like they're in real places and not just like a green screen set. My big issue with the movie is that I don't like the last 15 minutes because that's where the fakeness came in. It just was like too CG heavy, but outside of that, it's an excellent, and maybe I can't decide between this or Shazam which of the DCEU movies are the best, and it's good that I say, like, let me start that again, because Ryan has the poster.
I got the new poster up that just came out this week.
I love that. I saw that on Twitter, and I said
it's gorgeous.
It is beautiful. It's very kaleidoscopish, and I put out a tweet to Patty Jenkins. I was like, so I'm gonna need this in a T-shirt. To wear when I interview you this time next year, because she says this is coming out this time next year. So I was like, so I'm gonna need that on a T-shirt when I interview you and Gal Gadot this time next year.
That is a gorgeous poster.
I wanted to address 2 things before we move on real quick. So you mentioned Melissa McCarthy. I saw an interview that Melissa McCarthy did with Ellen, where she talked about how people are always poo-pooing all over her films. In particular, this one critic, a male critic, said that she was fat, she was unattractive, and said some really not so stellar things about her. She happened to run into him at an event or a screening or something, and they had a whole conversation about it, and she literally just tried to get him to understand the fact that, you know, when you say things that are negative or when you say things that are not stellar about a woman that's making film, that some little girl that's growing up that has that aspiration, it's going to affect her dream whether you realize it or not. And she was like, what do you think your daughter would say if you said this to them. He said, but I would never. She said, exactly. And that's why you shouldn't. The other thing I want to mention real quick is If Beale Street Could Talk is another female-led film that was one of my favorite films that was directed by Barry Jenkins, who also did Moonlight, in which Regina King won the Oscar for. But the women in that film were strong. They were fierce. It was really wonderful. Kiki Lane, Regina King, Anjanou Ellis. It was just a really stellar cast of women in that film.
You know, I would love if we could go back in time and pull out a lot of these women from 1939. From the women, pull out a Joan Crawford, pull out a Norma Shear, you know, bring in a Katharine Hepburn and Betty Davis and pair them up with some of the women out there today.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? That would be something interesting to watch.
Amazing.
Yeah, it would.
So any creative video people out there, you know, get your little magic wands going. I want to see somebody do a mashup of something like that.
Yeah, that would be great.
So before we run out of time today, we got about 5 minutes left. Big event happening in Los Angeles in the film world. In the world of independent film. Dances with Films Film Festival is back for its 22nd year.
Wow.
That in and of itself
is a miracle in LA for a film festival.
You know, after 26 years or so, we just lost LA Film Festival.
And that was one of my favorites. I was sad.
That was my baby. I covered every single one.
Me too. Well, not all of them, but most of the films
I was there from day one.
I loved that festival.
So that broke my heart. That broke my heart, and I still have not forgiven Josh Welch, the president of Film Independent, for that decision. But we still have Dances with Films, and Dances with Films truly celebrates the indie film, whereas LA Film Festival and even Toronto, Sundance, TIFF, you're going to see bigger name stars in the films. You may not see huge name stars in these films and Dances with Films for the most part, but you're going to see some amazing films. Festival runs from Thursday the 13th through the 23rd. It's at the Mann's Chinese Six Complex, right there in the heart of Hollywood. But what is kicking off this year's festival, and this is a very big deal, is a film called Appleseed. There are still tickets available for opening night. Go get your ticket now to see Appleseed. It stars Rance Howard, Ron's dad, in his very first feature role, and it is his last feature. And adding a little more to the tissue count, Clint Howard is in the film and plays Rance's son. It is the only time they have ever played father-son on screen. And I spoke with Ron about it because the whole family had seen the film, not the final cut, but about 15 minutes before what it is currently. And I spoke with Clint over the weekend for 2 hours.
Wow.
And the love that these boys have for their father and the pride they have with his work in this film. And I got to tell you, it is the best thing Rance has ever done. It is unforgettable. It's from writer-director Michael Worth. Michael also co-stars opposite Rance in the film. See it. Get your tickets for DWF and see it.
Oh, I will want. I hadn't even thought about checking that out, but now you've kind of made me want to see it.
And you know, there are some other great films I've already seen that are going to be at the festival, blowing up right now. The Land, Driven. That's okay. It's creepy. I love it. 90 Feet from Home. Gotta see it. That's all I'll say. Would you like to try again? I haven't seen that one yet. I started it and I had to stop because I had to run. So I got to finish that one. But these are just some of the titles that are going to be popping up.
Okay.
All right.
And
Well,
all right.
thank you, Miss Debbie.
Well, thank you. So quickly, before we go, where can everybody find you, Carla?
You can find me across all social media platforms at The Curvy Critic. And again, you can find me on Sundays at Black Hollywood Live doing The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., the General Hospital After Show at AfterBuzz TV. And at 7 p.m. or 8 o'clock p.m., I think, we are doing that American Princess After Show at AfterBuzz TV.
And Alexander.
Right. YouTube and Instagram, The Real Mr. Robinson. Twitter, at RealMr_Robinson. And the Stardust app, Real Mr. Robinson.
And you can find me BehindTheLensOnline.net, on Twitter, Movie Shark D or BTL Radio Show, on Facebook, Debbie Lynn Elias or Behind the Lens, on YouTube, same thing. But that is all the time we have today. It has been a thrill to be here again with all of you and to have both of you here.
Yay!
Glad to be here.
We finally got to do something together, Carla.
I know, right? Yay! It's been ages.
And of course, Alexander for saving us.
Yay!
No problem.
Yay! So, I don't know what we have scheduled for next week, but be back next Friday at 11 for another LA Online Film Critics Society Weekly Critics Picks.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.